I would say go.
Hi everyone, welcome to this week's Jog Chat. We've got the brilliant Kit talking about climate change being a safeguarding issue. I know they are really keen to talk to you, to engage with you via the chat on Twitter and on here, so please do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. Yeah, I'm going to try and have octopus arms and stuff like that. No, I cheated. Jen's giving me way too much credit. I've cheated. I've just scheduled the tweets so I don't have to do them manually. So they will come up roughly about when the time I ask the question. So welcome everybody. Thank you so much, Jen, and thank you so much, Paul, for having me. And welcome everybody. I won't introduce myself. I just would like to crack on. So whether you're engaging this through YouTube, you can say hi in the chat, please. I know that there's a bit of a lag between me talking and then something appearing on the chat, so I'll do my best to interact with you via the chat. I do like the classic Jog Chat format, the 3 questions and then seeing the discussion that takes place. So I'm going to build in an element of that. But I'll also kind of like give my my thoughts about why we need to be pursuing climate change as a safeguarding issue. I've done a lot of groundwork already. Some of you already know that. Some of you may have come to the Geographical Association conference. Some of you have read some articles, and I've had some articles published here over in the UK, in the GA in particular, and some articles published in the United States. I'm just trying to build this foundation because, as many of you are aware, the scientific consensus is coming to the fore now that we really are running out of time when it comes to avoiding what they term as dangerous climate change. So, hi, Catherine. If you can get on your Twitter, Catherine, and get retweeting, drag some more people in, that would be amazing. My jog mum, who was on my podcast actually, previous guest, do give that a listen. Catherine was amazing. Okay, if you could please, there's a Menti for you there. So if you have a go at that, you can scan the QR code or do menti.com 90173911 for us. And then what that'll do, that'll ask you just a few questions with regards to how you're feeling right now with regards to teaching the issue of climate change. So the kind of things that I'll ask you is, what's your knowledge of safeguarding policy and practice? So we've all got various amounts of knowledge, because if you're not the designated safeguarding lead, you've probably got less knowledge, just operational knowledge in case something happens. Your confidence about teaching climate change, understanding how climate change is a safeguarding issue is really just a ballpark for me to see where you think by the end of this Jog Chat. This is a real key one that I really want to pin on tonight, and that's the confidence of a whole school or an SLT investment in climate change as an issue. That is something which is really, really key and vital to building a sea change. I just realized I did a pun and that wasn't intended. Honestly, a sea change at school in mind of getting this a bit more of a prominent issue. And then the level of optimism and hope that we can deal with the climate crisis. So if you can have a go at that, that'd be fantastic. Right, so let's start off with, for those, most people know me, but just to give you a bit of my credentials, I'm just a kind of allay fears that, I don't want to come across as a false expert or that I'm just doing, broad brush research, stuff like that. I actually have experience and expertise in this. I'm fully safeguard trained. I've been safeguard trained in many different formats and variants, including at the University of St Anglia I work with vulnerable students as well. So I've had extra things there. So I'm mental health aware trained in that respect and how that can influence safeguarding. And in terms of my climate credentials, so I've got a degree in environmental science, and I know that they can lapse and expire very, very quickly. But I've since had updates by being working with climate scientists at NOAA in Boulder, Colorado, and working in their educational outreach. And my recent job, the one before this one, I worked for climate scientists and energy scientists with the data that we're producing. And I was involved in a project with the EU Copernicus Climate Change Service. So that's my credentials. So I don't want to spend too long on that because I'm not here to blow my own trumpet. I'm just want to tell you that that's, the authority I'm coming from. So not me personally, my personal expertise, but who I've surrounded myself with in order to talk about this issue. So before I ask you the first question, let me just get the chat up just in case anyone said anything to start. Okay, so before I ask the first question, I just want to give you a quick overview. Now, I've laid the groundwork already. If you want to go into and dig in the details with regards to all the data or the evidence for all of this, I will touch on it a little bit, but if you've got access to the GA conference recordings, you can watch my climate change safeguarding issue talk. So where I really do give a lot of stuff there, and I'll be covering almost like a mini version of that here for a wider audience. But also you've got the article obviously on my Jog Ramblings blog, which you can read. So I'm not going to go into the nitty gritty in that respect. So the highlights is that the evidence we have is that the mental health of our young people and our students is on the decline. And there's been studies that have come out that say that eco-anxiety, climate anxiety, ecophobia are issues that are on the rise, and they are affecting our students. And of course, we know as teachers and as educators that if you have, well, even us as educators ourselves, bearing in mind what we've all been going through recently, and certainly what you have been going through in the classroom, you know, mental health, poor mental health has a significant impact on your well-being and on your performance and on your potential to achieve and do whatever. So that's all manifesting itself, especially through this. And the other kind of thing as well we need to bear in mind is the evidence is that not only is impacts from climate change increasing and they're getting more widespread, but happening here in the United Kingdom, you know, they're becoming more tangible of an impact here in the United Kingdom. No longer is it we will teach and say, yeah, you know, sea level rise in Bangladesh or hurricane season over the United States and stuff like that. Wildfires in the Western US and all that in Australia. We're getting more and more evidence now to suggest that the extreme weather events that we're having here in the United Kingdom are impacting us directly. So therefore, the population, you know that whole hazard, you know, natural hazards and risk and stuff like that, you know, the Venn diagram coming across, we're now having a convergence between, you know, climate change impacts, vulnerable populations here in the United Kingdom, which can include our students, and that's continuing to overlap as time goes on. So, and the evidence is all suggesting that. So here's the first question for you, right? And I would like to see some good chat in the chat, please. I've got it timed automatically to come up on Twitter. So there might be some chatter on Twitter, on Instagram as well. Here's the first question for you. How can impacts through climate change and environmental degradation create safeguarding concerns with our students, right? So if I just go back to the Menti to see what your sentiments are at the moment. So you've got a kind of, as I've already said, it looks like a lot of you have got an operational kind of basic knowledge and understanding of safeguarding policy and practice. Okay, so nobody watching this at the moment is a designated safeguarding lead, I'd imagine. So what I would suggest you do there is, what do you know of safeguarding policy? Do you know the risk factors you've got to look out for, the, you know, the telltale signs, or even flip it round, or even the protective factors? You know, can you make a link as geographers to things that can be exacerbated by climate change? You know, think not just the physical health, but think of the mental health, think of people's space, you know, children's space as well, their relatives, you know, is there any vulnerability, not just to them, but maybe to their close circles or things like that. So you don't really have to have like a deep knowledge of safeguarding to think about how climate change can be, stuff like that. And it looks like, you know, a lot of you are saying here that you're quite confident about teaching about climate change. So I'm pretty confident that you can make those links. All right. So let's go back here to see what we've got. So Catherine, I know you're with us, Catherine. We'd love to just get your thoughts on this. I'm just going to go and see the hashtag to see if we've got going on here. Actually, it's okay to say myself, Paul, and Jen do understand that it's that time of the academic year where we're just a lot of us are just exhausted, especially with everything that's going on. So I do understand that some of you are probably watching this on a replay rather than live. So if that's the case, if you're watching this on a replay rather than on live, then what I would recommend you do is put some comments on in the video comments itself, or come back on Twitter and use the hashtag GeogChat or GeogChatLive and reply to the tweets that I've been putting out. So I've just tweeted out now the first question. So we'll see if there's any responses to that. Going back here. Okay, so Mr. Phillips, hey, how you doing? Yeah, in Norfolk, of course you are in Norfolk as well, aren't you? So it's good to see you. So, for example, yeah, Catherine is saying, I teach in an area at risk of coastal flooding, and when students realise the real risk, this can be stressful for them. Yeah, and that's when Anthony is saying, yeah, well, Norfolk. So I'm thinking, and actually, who was it who recently posted something on Twitter? Or was it the new GIS which showed the shoreline management plans, which I thought was brilliant, because I used to love using the official documents and the shoreline management plans, teaching in Norfolk myself as well. And I always used to get a kick of getting, especially GCSE and A-level students, understanding official documentation and then taking the geography out of that. So yeah, if any of you can remind me who that was on Twitter just a few days ago, who tweeted about GIS maps for shoreline management plans, that's fantastic. So Catherine, what kind of how does that stress manifest itself with your students? I mean, is it a physical thing? Does it manifest itself physically, or do they start asking deeper questions because their anxiety levels have raised? It'd be really, really interesting for you to say what kind of way that manifests itself. So Catherine's an added, students can feel quite powerless when looking at issues such as deforestation in the Amazon. Yeah, looking at how they can make a small difference can empower them. Yeah, and I will come to that a little bit later. In fact, about how we can enhance agency with our students, how we can, Clover Hogan, the fantastic Clover Hogan, A Force of Nature, does. If you don't know of the work that Clover does, just look her up, and she's been involved in so many fantastic initiatives. But yeah, so she uses the terms turning anxiety into agency, which I really, really, really like. Yeah, so Jen's then saying, what about so that's really important, obviously having it in the context of your students. So let me give you some examples then, because we're coming to the point where we're going to move on. Check the Twitter hashtag again, right before I do that. Multi-platforms. Oh, thank you for your kind words there, Jen. Right, so yeah, it's so I'm thinking about this. I mean, right now I'm looking at a lot of I've got my new weather station installed, which is exciting. It reached a high here, so local microclimate temperature right here in my garden of 29.8 degrees. So it was very, very close to 30 degrees Celsius here in my locality. And these kind of temperatures are becoming the norm. The Met Office statistics say that having days of 30 degree or more temperatures 2 days consecutively is going to go from an average of about once every 4 years to about 4 times a year in a medium to high carbon emission scenario. Now you think about anywhere in a country where who would be vulnerable with those kind of temperatures. I mean, we were just talking actually just before we came on about how that can exacerbate things like asthma. So heat can really, really drive those problems. We know that there's going to be an increase in, and I'm suffering. So you have to excuse me. You can see me quick touching my nose every now and then. I need to get some tissue. My allergies are really kicking off, and it happens, when the temperatures swell up, and then especially when you get loads of growth, and then you get a sudden downpour of rain. We're expecting some, thunder and lightning over the next few days here. That's going to kick everything off, and those, a lot of allergies are going to come in that. So you think of all those impacts there, and so you've got that physical side, and I feel drained, really mentally and physically drained when I have hay fever attacks and things like that. So other things to do that. Yeah. So Catherine's added something else here. Students tend to start off in denial. That it's classic, isn't it? Won't affect me, no problem. Won't affect me ever. Same thing. Why do I have to put my bike helmet on? I'm not going to get in a crash. Those mentalities, absolutely. And that's why the power of geographical knowledge is so important. That we're not talking about the probability of things happening or stuff like that, but telling real stories in the context that the students can go into. So even if you're in the middle of the United Kingdom and you're nowhere near a coast, you can do one of two things. One, you can talk about other impacts. So are they by a river? You know, could they be affected by flash flooding, like what, you know, the flooding that happened in Sheffield? And I'll come back to that in a moment. So, and then what about things such as heat waves, as I just mentioned? What about if they are not near the coast, but maybe they are reliant on places near the coast? So maybe their parents have they commute to an area that's near a coast, or maybe here in Norfolk, and I know Anthony, you'll back me up on this, you know, if the sea level, if they don't do something to protect the wash and the fens, you know, they're planning on building the giant sea wall, for example, across the wash. Not sure how that will wash. But, you know, if that occurs, can you imagine how much cut off that the county of Norfolk will become? And especially if the Broads go as well, you know, then you've got the knock-on impacts, the secondary impacts, you know, the economic impacts, maybe the loss of income, the loss of jobs, and how that can, and we all know from the current circumstances with COVID, how that can have a knock-on effect with your well-being and your mental well-being as well. So we've got to think a bit more bigger picture, a bit more nuanced, where, you know, climate change as an exacerbator can cause all of these knock-on impacts to occur. And now that makes the safeguarding issue watertight argument, because you think of all those secondary things that I've just said, you will find them in your safeguarding policy, you know, especially with the government now releasing guidance a few years ago, specifically about mental health, which we know is a recent phenomenon. There, it used to be coupled in, didn't it, with the safeguarding policy, but now there's a separate document for the mental health and well-being of our students. So that's just something to bear in mind. Okay. Thanks for that, everybody who joined in that chat. That was some good thoughts there. So I'm going to jump straight on to question 2 then, because I do want to come and be a bit more positive with things like this. Yeah. So one way we can start to tackle this, and as I can see from the chat that's taking place, which is brilliant, you know, talking about bringing things into context and making it, you know, trying to deal with this attitude that it's never going to happen to me, because they can't see themselves in that situation, right? There's no tangible peril for them. You know, crossing the road is a tangible peril. You can see that when you get to a main road, especially if your school's on a main road, you can see that danger, and then you're a bit more careful with your crossing. Kids who walk around here to go to the local high school here, the roads are quite small, there's some rat runs, and they take a little bit more risks crossing the road, funnily enough. But in my old school, where I used to teach, which is on a major commute route up to Norwich, the kids were, on average, not all of them, on average, a lot more careful crossing the road, because they can see that, you know, it's tangible to them, that peril is tangible to them. Right, so one way we can bring things into context, of course, is to change the culture at the school. You know, bring it in and say, this is an thing that's going to impact us all. Here's how it's going to affect our locality. Here's how it permeates into all walks of our life and all contexts and all subjects. So we can attack this through a cross-curricular whole school initiative. And you know as well as I do that it's the sustained engagements that make the best, you know, not the flash in the pans. You know, I've done one-off lessons where the kids have been amazed, fantastic. But then when I ask them about what have they learned, you know, a few weeks later, they only remember the exciting flashbang bits. They don't really remember the actual knowledge that they gained from it. So it's that sustained kind of engagement that really does it for them, isn't it? So what I want you to tell me, a bit more positive, if you've got some examples where you've had some successful but sustained as well whole school or cross-curricular initiatives, brilliant. Let us know. You know, why did it work? What was so fantastic about it? What was it? Why was it that you had at least 2 or 3 other departments engage and get really excited about all this stuff? And why was it that you kept coming back to it? Or maybe it was a series of lessons a month or a term down the line when you were like, yeah, do you remember when we did that thing with the English and the history and the maths department? Yeah, let's look at that again. You know, that's a sustained engagement, isn't it? But in my experience, it's most the latter. You know, you try and set something up that could be amazing, cross-curricular, can really build the, you know, change the culture in the school, but it fizzles out. It doesn't come to nothing, or even doesn't get started. So if that's the case, what were the barriers that you experienced? So let's go back here. Catherine, so we were making good progress with the Eco Schools Award, but it was affected by COVID. Yeah, the main departments involved were geography, science and tech. And some of my students ran events making pledges to raise awareness of climate change. A fundraiser for the Aussie bushfires, yep, that happened a few years ago. Makes a big difference when it comes from the kids. Pause at the moment because big C. Yeah. Okay, right. So Paul is saying we have a school podcast, and this week he'll be reading extracts from "No One Is Too Small to Make a Difference" by Greta Thunberg. Hoping to start conversations with this. Wonderful, good. Yeah, and you know what? The frustrating thing for many of us is that you have this great idea for a drop-down day, collapse timetable day, whatever you choose to call it, activities week, all that kind of stuff. You get the kids really infused. You do amazing stuff. You know, you do cross-curricular stuff. There's so much. You know, there was one that we did about women in STEM a few years ago. It's fantastic, and I brought in like the solar impulse, and talked about how the women engineers worked on the solar impulse. The solar plane that flew around the world. They went into DT to build a little. It was amazing. It was brilliant. The kids were so. But as soon as that activities week was over, finished. There was nothing, And then I actually spoke to the members of the other department. Said, "Oh, have you mentioned those little solar planes that did?" And I said, "Yeah, we do our electronics model. We get one of them to about, but apart from that, not really." So they tend to be tokenistic, don't they? Just for activities week, just for Earth Day, just for whatever. So we got to try and crack this somehow. And of course, when we're all having, we're under so much pressure to just get through the content and then make times for, mock exams or bleeding CAGs or tags, then we just don't seem to have the time, do we? So I don't have any solutions, which is why we're doing GeogChat to see if there's any solutions out there, any examples of good practice. So one thing I did try was I got a PGC student of mine, and I tried to get try to do the work for the rest of the school kind of thing. It was a project for the PGC student, and what they wanted to do, they wanted to collect all the other departments' schemes of work for a year group. I can't remember what year group it was. It was one of the Key Stage 3 year groups. I wanted to see where things can match together and link over, to see if there was anything that basically were geography and English teaching something at the same time where they could naturally mesh together. So if English were doing something like haiku poems or things like that, why don't we do haiku poems in geography at the same time in order to build, understanding of a geographical concept, and then they work on it in English. So we tried to do stuff like that. Great enthusiasm, but then the everyday pressures kicked in and it fizzled out. It was unfortunate. As soon as that PGC student left, all dry for it lost. Okay, so there's a few good chats here in the YouTube channel. So if you do take a look at that, again, I'm gonna have a look, see if anybody's engaging on Twitter. It's a very slow day today. Okay, so we got Paul Turner. Yeah, so going back to question 1 now, Paul Turner says on Twitter, today's, so just want to see what that hashtag is, climate change committee report has highlighted that 4,000 people died from heat-related illnesses in the UK since 2018. Every year, 40,000 people die premature from air pollution in the UK, direct health implications. So there you go. It's not just climatic changes, through increase in heat in the atmosphere, which is changing all of our weather patterns. It's also those things that come with it as well, like air pollution. And as you already mentioned, things like asthma and whatnot. So how does this not have a direct impact? Right. So what else are we saying here? Yeah, there you go. So Catherine is saying, we found out that both geography and art look at the ocean environment and issues, such as plastic pollution, working on development. Yeah, so you don't have to. Okay, let's try this, because part of what we're doing GeogChat tonight for is to see if we can get something that will get SLT and department heads to move, right, to budge. So why not propose, when the next time your SLT turns and said to you, right, we're going to plan our twilight sessions, our insets, whatever now, right? Anybody got any ideas? What do you want to do? Maybe us as geographers, we can get on the front foot. You know what? I'm a freelancer now. You're quite happy to get me in for a 10-minute, 15-minute virtual chat, whatever. And I can lay down the evidence from my expertise, part of that inset. And then you can go away as a school. There's something I'm going to do with you for question 3, which could help with this. And then you can go away and do something with your thing and say, right, what we're going to do, we're going to take this climate change issue by the scruff of the neck, and we're going to look at what you already do in your schemes of work, in your programs of study, where we can bring it in as a curriculum artifact, or how we can bring it as in a stimulus. Okay, and there is something done, which I'll show you a bit later, from the Leeds, some of you might know this already, from the Leeds DEC. I've done a great work with this, where they're trying to make it a cross-curricular issue. Right, another little chat. Let's see if we've got any more engagement on Twitter here. Right. Okay, Suzanne Thorne, just now. Activities week this year will focus on long-term sustainability of the school site. Kids are being given a tree to plant and are having the CEO of the trust speaking to pupils about moving to carbon neutral. Not sure if it'd be sustained and successful, but that's a great start. So a good question, follow-up question for Suzanne, therefore, would be, what can we do? What could you do a bit later on down the line within our curriculum, could even be for if it's so much struggle to do it within the curriculum or in the content or whatever like that. What about form times? What about PSHE and citizenship? I know I love PSHE and citizenship, because you can explore so much nuance and bring so much of the children's expertise themselves and experiences and whatnot in that. All right, awesome. Thank you. I don't know if you're watching the YouTube stream, Suzanne, but that was a lovely little snippet. Thanks for that. Right. Okay, so here we go. So here's something for you to take away now, right? So I know that YouTube don't do links, which is a bit pants, because I can't just type the link in the YouTube chat. But I've made it into a bit.ly for you, so hopefully this will work quite nicely for you. So I want you to have a go at that bit.ly. If you're on a mobile phone, don't worry about it. You can just have a think about it. bit.ly/CCAS jam. So that's climate change as safeguarding. Yep. Jam. So what that will take you to is the Jamboard that I did for the GA conference. So actually, if I bring that up for you on the screen, and hopefully you'll be able to, hopefully I've shared my screen rather than my PowerPoint, because you might still have a PowerPoint. I'll soon be able to, because you can all see each other there. Hi. That's weird, isn't it? Just give us a thumbs up, Jen or Paul, that's coming through all right, that you can see the Jamboard if you use yeah, perfect, excellent, cheers. Right, so just give you a bit of time for this. So what we've got here is, in the article that I wrote for the GEO, I post a series of questions that you can do for evaluation. So say if you manage to bag that inset in September, would be great when you have your just thought of that. What about when you do your safeguarding retraining? Yeah. What about going to the designated safeguarding lead who's responsible for doing that training, and say to them, would it be possible to spare 15, 20 minutes? I've got a couple of questions I'd like to pose the school, for this. Why not? Take the opportunity. Yeah. So here you go. These questions here. So what I've done on the left-hand side is the safeguarding link to the statutory guidance from the government. Okay, so Department for Education, keeping children safe in education. So there you go on the left-hand side. So those things that you'll recognise, because we've all had to do training on that, haven't we? Like providing a safe environment, etc. Contextual safeguard, online safety is a big one, especially nowadays. So what I've done is that I've mapped some questions to those safeguarding prompts in the statutory guidance. So, for example, so for what school and college staff should look at, early help, are there children at greater risk to anxiety? What are their risk factors? So, children who have high levels of ambient anxiety anyway, who do have higher prevalences of things like panic attacks and whatnot. Yeah. So those students, especially if they're very, very environmentally conscious, those two things can coalesce to become a big problem when it comes to eco-anxiety, right? So, and then things like this, is the school catchment area situated in the area at risk or increasing events? So, Catherine, you said about being on the coast, yeah? So that's, you can explore that as that. We were saying about here, Anthony, we were saying here about in Norfolk, weren't we? If you're in the Broadlands or something like that, or you're in the area such as that, if you're in the city in London, where the urban heat island effect can exacerbate the increase in temperatures, so all these things, and as geographers, we can really help our schools designated safeguarding leads to pay attention to these things, right? So considering all these questions, pick any any you like. I mean, if we're lucky enough to have any primary providers here, primary experts, that'd be great. You know, I've put the stuff here. I've kind of like summarized them here. So, you know, what could you do whenever you do something in your year group? What can you do? So like there's this thing that this person does with year 4, which is 5 minutes of headspace. Sounds nice, doesn't it? Yeah. And they, you know, how to reduce by promoting protective factors. Okay. What's this one? Oh, by the way, if you can't read the post-its, you can just expand them like that, as long as you put them back. Yeah. So service learning projects in the local community to empower children and give them experience taking actions. That's what they do in year 4 and 5, which is nice. Eco warriors. I love it. Eco warriors. Yep. Yeah. Year 2. I know Theo's been doing this. Year 2. What is a habitat? You know, and why is that important with regards to the school grounds, maintain the school grounds, you know, being a help when it comes to protecting the environment. And then on page 3, you can tell I had a lot more secondary, lot of people. Yeah, Catherine, you can keep this, right? Anybody, you can copy this Jamboard. If you've got Google Classroom yourself or a Google account, you can copy it. And then if you want to do this with your school, clear it and do it again, or you can work on what everybody's done already. I'm keeping this live, right? So you can see a lot here. So this school here, the school grounds in year 9, whole school project to clean up the school, allotment, recycling, can make school. Yeah. Okay. Year 12 and 13, weekly drop-in sessions in the wellbeing area, huge uptake since COVID. Well, no doubt. Right. Okay. So, and then what I've done here is I've done it to physical geography. All right, so you can map your safeguarding, climate change safeguarding stuff to physical geography. You can map it to human geography. I would, you know, need to get a bit more postage on there, people. And then I think 6 is like free mapping. So you can stick a postie for anything you like. It could be, this is where the cross curricular can come in. Yeah, so you can stick a English, maths there or something like that, right? Okay, so that's a tool that you can all use. It's there. It's there for you forevermore. All that I'll ask you to do is before you start deleting post-it notes or moving them around or something like that, just go up here and make a copy for, you know, first. That'll be lovely. All right. So up to you how you want to proceed now. We're going to go on to question 3. You can play around with the Jamboard. Completely up to you, whatever takes your fancy and whatever you think is best for you, right? So let's have a look at 3. Okay, so actually, when you're looking, if you have a look at one of those posties, so from this curriculum mapping exercise, or if you don't have access to the Google Jamboard, no problem. What you can do instead is think about something you do in school already in your curriculum or a cross-curricular activity. What thing do you think, or what skill work, what lesson, what activity, whatever, what thing will you adapt or try to support student agency through curriculum delivery, right? So you can see what I'm doing here. I'm starting with the context, which is climate change is a safeguarding issue, and this is why. Then I moved on to, okay, what have we already tried as a school, as a partnership? You know, what kind of things, maybe not safeguarding related, can you work at a tangent? You know, what you could have done at success, or what barrier. So thinking of basically, so I've just given you a SWOT analysis, haven't I? And then now is right, okay, what are you doing? What can you tweak? What are those easy wins? Okay, so have a think about that. I'm just going to bring up my, all right, so that happens on that. So again, just if you're coming back to this later on, you're watching this through recording, you can see the bit.ly link there. That's not time sensitive, okay? Go on to that whenever you like, please. Obviously, with respect to the fact that other people will be accessing it, so don't delete anything and stuff like that. If you do want to start from scratch, copy it, start from scratch yourself, do it. Yeah, and see if you can build it into an inset, or if start with your department or something. Yeah, okay, yeah, yeah. Actually, someone said that at the GA conference, Catherine. Catherine, she said that I'm looking at fake news more in relation to climate change, which would be a good plan in my context. Yeah, and I've actually been doing a shameless plug now. The training I'm doing through the GA starting next week is going to focus on that quite a lot. So if you like what Catherine has just said there about putting things together with regards to critical thinking, you know, fake news, all that kind of stuff, and you want to link it to these environmental issues, I'll be talking quite a lot about those over the next 3 weeks with the GA. Okay, I'm going to take a breath because you know me, I talk too much. And let's have a look, see what people have been saying. I don't know if you can hear the neighbours out in their paddling pool. On YouTube for prosperity. Right. See anything else popped up on Twitter? Right. Nice. Suzanne's really going for it. So Suzanne's added something to question 2, which is there may be barriers to safeguarding policies as most schools, part of MATS, will have policies created and ratified by the overall trust. These are often written by lawyers. Might be better as an individual school appendix. Okay. I mean, I left my school just as it was turning to a MAT. And obviously everything I've heard since has been through the grapevine and through what my ex-colleagues has been telling me. That's really interesting. I'm not sure how I feel about that. I'll have to give it a bit more thinking. Wow. Okay. Written by lawyers. I'm not sure. No. Okay. I'll think before I go off at a tangent. I think I'll leave that one there and come back to the chat. Thank you for that food of thought, Catherine. Suzanne, sorry. Okay. Oh, Jen, you just had to mention. But good, yeah. Use, yeah. If you can turn someone like that well-known person, he who shall not be named, into a good artifact where we turn himself against himself. Yeah. As in, and how can we destroy this arguments that he does? You know, how can we counteract these false claims and what? Yeah. Okay. I'm all for using him as that. Yeah. So I know a lot of you are going to using current and perhaps using the G7, what's going on right now. You know, yeah, Boris Johnson flying to Cornwall. You know, okay, we're not here for we're not here when I get involved in politics. Yeah, enough said. Okay. So any more thoughts there? Anything that you do? Don't worry about it, Jen. Any more thoughts then about what you kind of do already and how we can do it? This is the hardest. If we crack this, right? If we crack it where we start getting not just ourselves within our curriculum through, but addressing this issue through it, it will be a catalyst to other things, right? Because we all know that one of the number one pressures is the lack of time we've got. So what we need to do, we need to stop thinking of curriculum delivery as the end, and we want to think of curriculum delivery, content delivery as the means, you know, which it really should be, shouldn't it? I mean, not just the means to an end of an exam, but curriculum delivery should be the vehicle that we address these issues. So things like decolonizing, which, you know, Catherine and I are involved in quite a fair bit, using the curriculum delivery as a vehicle for that. And that's been quite successful, isn't it? So we're looking at all the things we do deliver anyway, and we're looking at them through them with a decolonizing lens, but to an extent that the answers that the kids will give will still be passable in the exam. And like we know that the decolonizing geography group is, you know, working on the top down, trying to get the exam boards on board with that kind of stuff. So let's think, why can't we make the same approach with climate change and the safeguarding issues of climate change? So just do the same thing. How can we use curriculum delivery as a vehicle for these things? So that's why I really want you to go, if you can't think of something off your top of your head now, or you're watching this through a recording, really do give question 3 a long, hard think, right? Don't create extra work for yourself. You don't need to. Just you do it all the time. We tweak lessons here and there. We update our schemes of work. You know, we decide to change a unit because of current affairs, and it just seems the kids really want it. Yeah, we switch from learning about one country to another country because it's just, you know, so interesting. You want to change, so just make it part of that process. All right, not cutting corners, self-care. Right. So what I'm going to end with, and please, you know, you can look at my Twitter thread and you can go back to those 3 questions anytime you like. So what I'm going to end with now is the positives, kind of some examples of things that you can do. right? So this has been taken from the articles written in the GA stuff. So first things first, I've already mentioned them, the Leeds DEC, right? They got a fantastic set of resources on their website. There's the web page there. But not only are they've developed what's called a climate curriculum. I mean, also, as we know, we got Paul Turner's developed that one, his one as well, which is brilliant. But what these have done, they've done a very, very good. It's just really well structured. You know, what should they learn by the end of year 2, year 4, year 6, year 9, and I think it's year 30, year 11. So I don't think it goes on beyond that. But as you can see on the screenshot here, they've got things relevant to maths, things relevant to MFL, RE citizenship, science. So if you're struggling to get these other subjects on board to have a cross-curricular thread, maybe this is something that you can look at. They say, hey, look, I found this. It's pretty much ready made for you. Is this, do you teach what you do where you can slot this in, or it's just a like for like? And then you can start those conversations with, okay, how can we support you in geography? How can we support you in science? And that's, I used to be one of those annoying teachers who used to go, yeah, geography's everything, and I used to go around annoying people, like PEs, like, oh yeah, you're doing geography, aren't you? Blah, blah, blah. And then I realized that I wasn't making many friends. So what I actually did is I flipped it. So when I saw someone doing something, like dropping, because I had to drop something off in a lesson, I was on duty or something like that, and I dropped into an RE lesson or an English lesson or something like that, I would stand there and listen for a bit. And then when there was a natural pause and a time for me where I could have a quick word with a teacher without disruption, I'd say, that's really interesting. Talk to me at the end of the day. I'll see how we can help you out in geography with that. Just those little chats. It didn't always work, but, and then but I did get a few teachers come back to me and say, oh yeah, we're doing this we're doing this stuff. And we did a fantastic thing with art. They were doing, it was excellent. What was it? Oh yeah. It was like, kids had to be in a freeze frame, certainly holding objects, and then other kids had to draw them, something like that. And then they took turns to, it was like all about drawing the human body and stuff like that. And I said, this is amazing. So what I did, I combined art, drama, and geography, and I got the kids to do a freeze frame of the aftermath of an earthquake. So their kids were freezing, trying to put, pretend pulling people out of the rubble, upset, crying, things like that, wiping dust out of their eyes, etc., etc. And then we got kids to freeze like that for 10 minutes while the 2/3 of the rest of the class sketched it from different angles. And then another third did their freeze frame again, and then the other third did that. And it was lovely. It was brilliant. And then we took it. I mean, I taught drama as well, so I took it to the head of drama, and we played on it there. And I took it to art and say, look what we've done. We've and they actually used their art sketch pads as well. So the next time they took them to art, the art teacher could see it. So you can do it. It just takes a little bit of good faith. Right. I've definitely been promised that this is going to be out very soon, like within a week or two, right? I've been promised this. There's a whole new scheme of work coming out, 2 schemes of work, one about knowledge and understanding climate change, causes and impacts, and mitigation and adaptation of climate change, right? And it's going to be free because the Geographic Association has put a lot of this stuff up for free because of COVID and stuff like that. So it's going to be up soon, right? And okay, here you go. I'm saying it right now. If this is not up on the GA website by the end of next week, email me. All right. Okay, email me. Enough said. But what I've done here is that this is the last lesson of the mitigation and adaptation unit. But the most important thing is this, and this is how we help our students with their agency. So we've got how much they desire to do some kind of action. So, it's the simple things like, switching off lights. It could be simple things like that. It could be even things up to, help your parents or your guardians to explore the possibility of installing solar panels or putting insulation in their roof or whatever, right into your MP, all those classic things, right? But here's the most important thing. On the left side, it's how much they would like to do it. They rank themselves, yeah, I'd love to do that, or I don't really fancy that. But hidden behind there is the second that says, how capable am I of doing this? And this is key when it comes to addressing anxiety, right? Because you do not want to make a kid in the class feel guilty that their parents are not safe people, shall we say, to bring this stuff up at home, or they're not from a privileged background where they can afford to put solar panels on or buy an electric car, stuff like that. So then you actually ask them, right, you would like to do this, but if you're not capable, what support would you need? If you are capable, you know, but you're not willing, what is preventing, why are you getting that feeling that you don't want to do it? So then you start having those discussions, and it empowers them, because you're treating them like humans who can and can't do things, rather than you must do all these things. All right. So yeah, that should be on the GA website soon. I always love plugging this. The Youth Climate Summit happened in November. Everything up there is free to watch. So you just go on to the youth. So it's on the Transform Our World Global Action Plan website, Youth Climate Summit 2020. And then if you go to the primary schedule, you've got clickable links to all the stuff that they did. Brilliant. And you've got clickable links there for the secondary schedule. And I always plug my poem, because it's the Why Not Now. You can just search for on YouTube, Why Not Now, Youth Climate Summit. And what I've done there is that I've pulled together stories of success stories and positive actions from young people themselves. So I've collected those stories, put them into prose, lyrical prose, and then created a poem out of them using some of the imagery and the videos that they submitted. So it's not effectively, I'm the one who's telling saying the poem, but the stories come from the students themselves. So if you play them this poem, it should give them the sense that I can do something if my peers are doing it. And you'll see some of the things are really simple, then I can do it too. All right. Okay, 8:15. So that's me done now. Fantastic. Thank you so much, everybody. If you weren't able to make it live, that's fine. You know, I'm always contactable via Twitter or via email address up here. I've also now started up through my freelancing stuff. I've started up consultations. You can have a free consultation with me for 30 minutes, just so you can just pick a time on there that suits you. And I'm happy to chat about it. If you're having struggles with engaging with your SLT, or you want me to go through maybe the statistics, the data, because you need that, whatnot, great, fantastic. You can have my time, you know, for free 30 minutes. Why am I doing this? Because I'm terrible at giving my time for free, just willy-nilly. I have to set myself a structure and start actually putting food on the plate and stuff like that. If you've done the Mentee, if you can close that off now by going to the last page, so section 2, I just need to make sure that I think you can go to it freely. And just and I just want to, it would just be nice to see if anything has progressed in that respect. Jen and Paul, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. Catherine, Anthony, everybody else in the chat, thank you so much again. Paul, Suzanne, and everybody else on Twitter, brilliant. And any of you who are watching this on catch up, you're all amazing, fantastic. And if there's anything I can do to help and support you, you know where I am, just give me a shout.
Brilliant, thanks Kit.